Hello there, everyone. How are you all? Should we have a warm round of applause for everything so far? Come on, louder. An amazing job.
Still awake.
Okay, so we're going to talk about stablecoins, the exciting world of stablecoins. Everyone should introduce themselves first. I'll just introduce myself. My name is Peter McCormack. I have a podcast called What Bitcoin Did. I tend to focus on Bitcoin. I don't really talk about stablecoins that much, so I'm hopefully going to learn something today. If you all want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Joshua Shigala. I'm the CEO of Vaultoro. We've been trading between Bitcoin and physical gold since 2015. So we are an exchange where people can put gold, Bitcoin in and then trade to physical allocated insured gold and then back to Bitcoin when they think they've found the bottom. And we think it's better than fiat because screw fiat. Drop it. Drop fiat.
Hi everyone, I'm Nevin. I'm the CEO of Reserve, which is a protocol that aggregates together a whole lot of different stablecoins. And we're currently focused on deploying Reserve in a number of countries in Latin America. The first one is Venezuela, where people can buy and sell the currency with the local bolivar. Thanks for having me today.
I am Max Carjusa. I am co-founder and CEO of Manual Chain, the first Bitcoin collateralized stablecoin.
Hi, my name is Mariano Di Pietrantonio. I work for the MakerDAO Foundation. We are behind the DAI stablecoin credit system, and I'm in charge of the community in the whole Latin America and Spanish-speaking countries.
So we have a great panel then. Okay, so if I was going to go to a theme park, I definitely wouldn't go on the stable ride. I would want to be on the craziest roller coaster. So I struggle to ever get excited about stablecoins, but we had a little session beforehand where we spent some time discussing it, but for everyone here, why should they care about stablecoins?
I mean, if you're a merchant, if you're a person that's young, he's got a long life ahead of her or him, then you want to invest in something that is risky and will go up and down and try to find the fun upside to that. But if you're an older person who can't risk too much and they want to get out of the banking system, or if you are a merchant and you've just sold a television for Bitcoin, you want to hold that money so you can rebuy a new television to sell another one, right? So that's why you want something stable. Although if you're in full Bitcoin only, if you have both feet in Bitcoin, you can say that's kind of stable too, because you're constantly moving it out and you don't think about the ups and downs. You just get paid and pay. So yeah.
I think up until about 2017, there was a broad narrative that Bitcoin might stabilize itself and end up being adopted as a means of exchange, as a currency in the world. And I think that idea kind of was eventually shattered as people saw the price going up and down a lot. So, if you talk to someone in a Latin American country like Argentina or Brazil or Venezuela, and you ask them, would you use Bitcoin to deal with the inflation or the volatility of your own currency? The answer is basically, generally speaking, like, we in this room would like to do that, but a lot of them, the answer is no. They want US dollars, right? And why is that? That's sort of become the standard for how you think of prices, how you think of stability. And so, from my perspective, in the long history of crypto in the future, maybe at some point that won't be true, and the US dollar will not be the standard, but for now it really is. And so, I think we can see a lot of stablecoins taking that fact, being like, okay, let's import that stability from the US dollar, maybe another currency, but usually dollars, and try to smooth the transition from fiat money into cryptocurrency.
When I talk about stablecoins, I usually talk about decentralized stablecoins. The decentralization is the most important thing of the stablecoins. We all use Bitcoin because it's decentralized. Nobody can change the rules. But there is a big problem with Bitcoin, and it's the volatility. There is a lot of Bitcoin, there is a lot of business that could use cryptocurrency, for example, for international trade. They cannot use Bitcoin because of its volatility. If you have a decentralized stablecoin, you have all the pieces of the stablecoin auto-contained in the blockchain. That means that nobody can change the rules. So you have all the advantages of Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency, and you have the stability of fiat. That is why stablecoins are important.
Yeah, and let me add to that also, that having a stablecoin, a decentralized stablecoin that is taken as a deferred mean of payments, right? it lets you create services without trust, right? And some of the things that we are seeing right now with the DeFi world is that these services, although can be created also on centralized stablecoins, the real deal are the decentralized ones, right? Because they are, censorship resistant, they are programmable, they have all these properties that are really need to create this industry that is just in the very beginning.
Can I just, I don't think I think the decentralization is important, of course. We love that because we're all Bitcoiners, we love that. But is it decentralization or is it are you trying to get control away from the issuance of debt? Because at the end of the day, fiat, and what a lot of people don't actually get a grip of, is that fiat is a debt instrument. It's printed out of nowhere with interest that doesn't exist. And you get this Ponzi scheme almost happening where there's way more interest that is owed to how much is in circulation. Whereas an asset, rare numbers are mined into existence, they're found and spent. So there's not this interest that's backing it. This is what's interesting. And if we can have a stable coin that's not based on this ridiculous Ponzi scheme in the background, it's getting rid of the centralization in terms of the creation of more debt rather than, we need to have something that we can shut down. The shutdown ability is also important, but I think getting away from debt instruments.
Yeah, I'm agreed with you. That is why I say it can be also being built on centralized stablecoins. But the things that we are looking at least from the MakerDAO Foundation, we are looking for innovation, right? And the innovation in this space comes from decentralization, in which you don't need to have, let's say, a leg on your legacy financial institutions, right? At least for the most part of all of the collateral. And I think that this is the proper new thing here. How you design your system to be liquid, to be decentralized, and to be accessible for everyone, and obviously censorship resistance, right?
I think that if you don't like fiat, you shouldn't use a USD-pegged stablecoin. Because, for example, MakerDAO or Minion Chain, we build stablecoins that are backed by Bitcoin, but the DAI or the dollar on chain is pegged to the US dollar. So if you think that the US dollar is a Ponzi scheme, you are having a stablecoin pegged to a Ponzi scheme.
Is the dollar the least worst shitcoin?
The dollar is the
Hot take.
tether of the normal world, right? Everyone complains about it, but everyone uses it because of the network effects, the massive, massive liquidity with all sorts of things. And I think that the idea that you're putting forward of could we have some sort of system that's not based on fiat money, and so it's not organized in the way you're talking about, I think the answer is maybe yes in 20 to 30 or 40 or 50 years. I think the answer is today, no. My team and I spent literally thousands and thousands of hours thinking through different possible designs to try to see, could we create some sort of decentralized central bank that would actually do something similar to fiat money but without the downsides? And the answer, I think, is that it's very economically risky. What's happening is stablecoins all end up concluding, okay, you have to borrow some stability from somewhere. And even though the US dollar has potential problems and could go in a bad direction, today it is in fact the asset that's the easiest to borrow that stability from.
Yeah, stability is a weird term anyway. I mean, nothing's stable. The whole universe is moving, for God's sake. There is no such thing as stability. It's stability against something else, against corn, against pork bellies, against bushels of wheat.
It's a human product.
Yeah, so...
Although we are not very stable.
But there's clearly a spectrum. The thing people want is to be able to pay as much rent this month as a year from now, as 10 years from now, if they can.
But
right?
is that because the unit of account is dollars, or is that because dollars is actually stable?
Well, it's clearly not perfectly stable, right? But I think there's no sense in saying we don't know what stability is. Clearly, if you ask people, is the dollar more stable than the Argentine peso, you'll get approximately 100% of people saying the US dollar, right? So it's something that we clearly can tell, we can clearly see, and so we can try to get more of that.
what problems are stablecoins solving then?
So, I mean, I think interestingly, stablecoins obviously at the beginning solved the problem of how do you have a crypto exchange when regulators and banks are trying to stop you from having a crypto exchange, right? That's really what happened is, okay, we can have this dollar that's on the blockchain, and so you can run an exchange with no banking relationships and therefore fewer regulatory problems. That's what led to the blossoming of Tether. But Tether today is starting to be used outside of crypto trading. So in China, in Hong Kong, there's millions and millions of dollars of people buying Tether, moving it across borders and selling it. In Hong Kong, you can go to the currency changers on the street, and on the board where they quote different rates, they actually quote rates for Tether, like in normal currency changers on the street. So we've started to see it coming out of crypto speculation and into the world of people wanting, slightly different forms of money that are more mobile or that are more sovereign. And certainly I think that that's something that's going to blossom in Latin America as well over the next several years.
And all that Tether's held in 2 bank accounts.
Yeah.
Yay.
Question mark bank accounts. Yeah.
Questionable.
But therefore, does a stablecoin, a dollar-pegged stablecoin, have a very different meaning to somebody in America than it does to somebody, say, in Argentina?
I think so. I mean, well, sorry, I'm dominating, but I think from the U.S. perspective, there's really not much reason to use a stablecoin unless you're a crypto speculator right now.
Absolutely. If you are in the United States, you don't need a stablecoin. Well, that is not entirely true, because stablecoin will enable a lot of new ways of making business exactly the way that the email did. For example, you will be able to send a portion of a cent to read an article in a newspaper, or you will be able to pay for one live in your favorite game, or you will, well, whatever. There will be things that today we cannot imagine that will be enabled by stablecoins.
Yeah, and I like to explain as if it's like the stable coin, let's say, for example, DAI, it's like the API of the new internet, in which the market capitalization of DAI is like the total economic bandwidth that different developers have to develop new services, right? So right now, if we have, let's say, 120 million DAI in circulation, that is the total economic bandwidth for DeFi on that level, right? And the cool thing about this is if you think in dollars, in fiat, the iteration of new services that you need to be created on top of that needs to be through permissions, right? You are a bank and you're a fintech and you are another company. I need to ask you for permission to access your API, yours and yours. And the iteration is very, very slow. But on the other hand, with DAI or maybe with stable coins, you have fast iterations, right? Why? Because it's an open standard, DAI is accessible for everyone, it's open source, you can implement it on your website, on your platform, and the only thing that stops you is your imagination in what you are able to do, and obviously regulations.
What is the message for people about stablecoins here? Because we've had multiple answers here. It can be a tool for having micropayments, but it also can be something to hedge against potential inflation in a country such as Argentina. And that, to me, feels like a mixed message.
Well, the thing is, a lot of VCs asked us, what's the product going to be used for? And it's like, well, what is the dollar used for? Like, what is the peso used for? It's money, so it's used for so many different things. And so I think it's challenging for each project to pick, okay, what are we going to focus on first? And the projects have started to differentiate themselves by, which market they're going into first. But in the long run, I think there will be a power law where you have one or two, like, very, very widely adopted stable coins, and they'll be used for all manner of different things.
Yeah, I think you need to classify what is the low-hanging fruit, and in that case, for example, for Latin America, is inflation, because although Argentina and Venezuela is like the most well-known cases, right? But Chilean pesos is starting to devaluate, Brazilian real started to devaluate, Colombian peso was already devaluating, and also Mexican pesos. So, we have different rates of devaluation, but I think that for Latin America, the low-hanging fruit for sure is to hedge monetary policies, sovereign monetary policies.
I think there is a lot of use cases for stablecoin, but the most important one is that we can redesign or recreate the financial world with immutable rules. You can have.
But I think there's these great use cases of being able to send these stable values and move around, but I really urge everybody to be very skeptical of fiat coins, because there's many different stable coins, right? What I think I'm scared most of are fiat coins, are ERC20 tokens representing a dollar that's sitting apparently in a bank account. And these banks make money by speculating with the underlying asset of the creditor's assets. They own that money, they speculate with it. So you've got the underlying asset being speculated with over here, and the tether being the token being speculated over here. So you've got double speculation. You've got no real backing, because you don't know. The bank is super untransparent. You don't even know. Even if they did get audited, all of these fiat coins, the auditor would look at the website or whatever and say, yep, that bank has that money. But they cannot deep dive into where the banks are speculating with those funds, what sort of fractional reserve are they holding. They won't say. And this is very, very dangerous.
As far as I know, it's not an audit per se, but an attestation of the account, is which, let's say, some person certifies that it's an X amount of money in that bank account, and that's it. It's not like a full proper audit, because you can't do that on a bank account.
I think what you're saying is right. I think that there is that concern. But the way I think about it, essentially, when even if it's just a simple fiat-backed stablecoin, those people who are holding those dollars in that bank are, let's say it's in the US. That's a nation with all things together, all things considered, relatively good governance, compared to some nations that have kind of governance that's falling apart.
Lehman Brothers, gone the next day.
But so that good governance and those regulations, even though they're not a silver bullet, they don't mean that everything's fine in a crisis. Generally speaking, they mean that, that those assets are not going to be speculated with in a crazy way, in the way that's, like, say, happening with Tether. And so the way I think about it, this technology allows you to basically borrow the functional governance regime from one nation, and then through this decentralized technology, allow people in other nations to hold an asset that's sort of backed by that, instead of holding assets that are held in local bank accounts, which may be governed way more poorly. And so it's no governance is perfect, and so no bank is perfect. But it's kind of an interesting way in which we're now able to export governance regimes, fundamentally, is what's happening. You're exporting governance regimes to other places through this technology where you're holding a key, basically passing around this bearer bond that can at some point be redeemed back in that sort of functional nation, whether it's the US or Switzerland or Singapore or what have you.
Yeah, I mean, we're effectively going to do the same thing with Vaultoro, where we're tokenizing the gold that, we haven't tokenized in the last 5 years, but we're starting to now, plus have other vaulting facilities around the world, so that we can price in risk. So someone might hold a gold vaulted token in Hong Kong and find that gold is worth less than the gold in Switzerland, because that's solid over here. And so we can start pricing geographical risk, which I find quite interesting. And
that's cool.
Yeah.
Is the point you're making then, even with any stablecoin, they're never truly trustless? There's always some point of trust.
I think the notion of trustless is ridiculous. And there's always trust. I have to trust the developers of Trezor. I have to trust, there's always a bit of trust. What I want to see in this whole space is that there's more transparency so that we can either trust other people that are experts in deciphering the transparent data that's getting given. But yeah, I think the key really is transparency.
So what are the risks with stablecoins?
Well,
and be honest.
Every stablecoin has its own risk. For example, when you talk about centralized stablecoins with fiat as collateral, well, there you have a lot of risks, because you have to trust the people behind the stablecoin. You have to trust the bank where the money is. You have to trust that drug dealers are not going to use that coin, because if they use the coins, the government will shut down. But it's different. Why I say that you still need a little bit of trust? When you refer projects like MakerDAO or Manual Chain, all the code is public. Everybody can audit the code, but normal people cannot understand that code. So we hire companies that that make the security audit for that, and we publish that. But you still need a little bit of trust in that security. Have infinite liquidity. If Bitcoin collapses or Ethereum collapses, the stablecoin that uses that collateral will collapse too. So every different stablecoin has different issues.
I think that the biggest risk, the thing that could go really massively awry with stablecoins that could be terrible for the crypto world overall, is if there's an algorithmic stablecoin that has no backing, that just has a sort of algorithmic mechanism that's meant to keep it stable, which we tried really hard to figure out one that would work in it.
Stable relative to?
You know, whatever their oracles are pinging the price of. It could be the dollar or the euro or gold or what have you. But there's a category called algorithmic stablecoins. I would put Terra and Celo in this category. There are a number of others. Basis was like this, and they never launched. The thing that could happen is one of those could launch and be marketed very effectively and be significantly adopted. It could even happen in a market where people really, really need a stable currency and don't have one, and that's why it gets massively adopted. People who are not crypto speculators, people who just want to preserve their savings. If that protocol then blows up economically and falls apart, and the price of that goes, you know, down half or close to zero, regulatory backlash. Imagine if we were sitting here today talking about how great our stablecoins were, where it had already been the case that like $1 billion stablecoin had collapsed and lots of innocent people had lost their money. You know, it would be a very different situation. And that really could happen. There are economic experiments being run with some stablecoins that I believe personally could go that direction. And so I think the worst thing that could happen is if one of those gets really big before it fails.
Yeah, it's like they hard code economic theory into a thing, let it go, and it runs, and then...
And to be clear, Nubits and BitUSD, like BitShares, are both like some form of like arguably algorithmic stablecoins that have collapsed. Like the peg has broken. It's just that it was a tiny number of people in crypto using them, right? But we have these bigger projects who are marketing to huge numbers of normal consumers. And so I think there's a real risk, a real thing to be worried about there.
I believe there is no way to launch uncollateralized algorithmic stablecoin.
It's happening. It's already happened.
Yes, but there is no way to get adoption. Why people will use that?
Terra will tell you that like hundreds of thousands of people in Korea are using it to like pay for like the most popular thing is diapers on an e-commerce website because they have like partnerships with people and they're offering massive discounts.
And make it die, people are using
like
it.
Ponzi schemes.
I don't want to use that term. I don't want to use that term. But so, you know, basically paying for adoption is something that could cause this.
Okay, but that is a very important message to do. Algorithmic stablecoin without collateral cannot work.
Yeah, I agree.
Why are there so many stablecoins? Even in preparation for this panel, I discovered 3 more I'd never heard of. You know, if a stablecoin, they tend to all majority be pegged to the dollar. Why do we need so many different stablecoins pegged to the dollar?
I mean, I'm a competition maximalist. I think more competition the better, because that's how you find real money. And if we look at this space, the most profitable space, the killer apps for crypto are conferences. It's kind of a joke there. Is also exchanges and stablecoins, because these are profitable. If you sell
Bitcoin.
No, but I mean, Bitcoin is part of that. You trade Bitcoin on an exchange. You know, but the stablecoins companies, they sell it for $1 and they buy it back for 99 cents. And this is do that millions and millions of times. And
yeah, in my eyes, the thing is that we have so many stable coins. As I said to you guys, it's like I think of this like the car industry, in which every brand, every card, every model fits like a clear purpose. We can talk all that we want about Tether, but the actual reality is that Tether is being used the most for traders, right? And maybe it's fulfilling this purpose, and it's doing well in that sense, right? And maybe we have DAI for DeFi, or maybe we have Money on Chain for RSK network, and there will be like a lot of use cases, and I think that like the aggregated demand of the stable coins will fit each and every need that the hopefully new users will come, right?
Is that not a threat to adoption, though? If we think, or if we forget kind of like all the Bitcoin and crypto nerds we have in here, kind of understand what's going on. If you talk about stablecoins being of huge benefit to people in Argentina because of the threat to the currency, and if somebody said, okay, I want a stablecoin, and then they have a choice of TrueUSD, Tether, DAI, like all these different protocols and coins, does it just get to the point where it's too confusing and a bit of a barrier to entry?
I personally think that there'll be a period of confusion because there'll be a bunch of different products coming to market. But and it could be that there's a stablecoin for every different use case. I personally think that there will be a power law, and 10 years from now, there will be one stablecoin that is basically dominant in the way that everyone thinks of Bitcoin as basically dominant in crypto today. And I think the reason why there are so many now is that a lot of entrepreneurs around the world sort of also have that vision and have their different opinions about how to create it. And there's like an ideological and economic incentive to try to create the stablecoin that becomes number one. So I think a lot of different entrepreneurs are trying to do that.
Yeah, I think the car analogy is really good. When the automobile was first invented, every single bicycle shop turned into a car maker because they had all the tooling and all the stuff, and they would start making cars. There was really a lot of brands of cars, and they've all died out, and you've got, still quite a bit.
And another thing that we are not taking into consideration is the thing is regulation in countries, right? I think, and one of my biggest concern in this space is what will be those coins that will be, let's say, regulated or adopted by countries in which they will obviously will prefer to be fiat-backed stable coins, in which all the policies and the actions of the central bank of that country can also has some action and effect on those stable coins,
yeah.
right? I mean, I'm the central bank of Argentina. I will prefer to have a stable coin in my country in which all my policies and all my actions can also be enforced on those stable coins. I want to print money, okay, that coin is it's wrapping my national currency, and will feel the effect of that money printing thing.
Can I ask a question though? Just to throw, do you think there will be an inflationary effect if the central banks don't lock up that collateral, truly lock it up and prove that it's locked up? Are they then creating more inflation by creating this stablecoin that's somehow pegged, but this peg thing keeps working anyway, so you're not really pegging, so you're actually just inflating the currency by also having a stable currency?
Well, I mean, we have the petro in Venezuela, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a joke.
One petro is
kind of
$60, but they say that it's backed by barrels of petrol.
It's backed by lies.
Gold and diamonds. But I don't think that anyone could grab a petrol and say, okay, give me my barrel of petrol, right?
Exactly, that is impossible. Anyway, the question was why there is so many stable coins. And the answer is there is a lot of stable coin with fiat as collateral in a bank account because it's virtually free to do that. There is no technology, there is no development involved in that, but there is not a lot of decentralized stable coins.
Okay, so we've got about 2 minutes to go. It's been very interesting for me. I mean, the conclusion I took from all of this is to buy Bitcoin. But do you guys have anything you want to add before we close out?
Why buy Bitcoin?
Tell
us. Yeah. What was the conclusion?
I'm just trolling you.
Stable coins can give you rapid exposure to Bitcoin.
No, really. So what is the future for stable coins? What should people be keeping an eye out on?
Well, I think the future of stablecoins are decentralized stablecoin, but there will be a switch in the peg that we are using. We are using US dollar today because it's a very popular currency, but I think in the future we are going to switch from US dollar to something else. What is that something else? I don't know, probably GDP or an index of stocks or something like that. And we will have really stable coins.
I think that the utility of a stable coin, like any cryptocurrency, will come down a lot to liquidity. Like how easy is it to trade in and out of it from the local currency in any given place. And so the vision that we have for the future is to have a stablecoin where you can trade in and out of it super, super easily, like, you know, with a consumer interface, not with something that's complicated and sort of scary looking like a crypto exchange, anywhere in the world, where anyone can move their money into that token in a few seconds, send it to anyone else in a few seconds, and they can move it out into any other currency in a few seconds. And I think if we can fully connect the world with a liquid market like that, that's really, truly just like feels accessible to everyone, to businesses, to people, that creates a very open sort of mechanism for exchange throughout the entire world. So that's what I'm hopeful for.
Do you want to close this out, Joshua?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Buy Bitcoin, stay away from stablecoins. It's a ridiculous notion. You could buy freaking fiat. I mean, just buy some fiat if you're going to buy fiat. If you're a trader, I understand it. You want to go to sleep at night. You don't want to be tossing and turning and thinking, oh, where's my Bitcoin at? So you want to park in something stable. If you're going to park in something stable, park in something bank and stay independent, like gold or silver or something else.
All right, round of applause for our panel, please.